I uploaded my last video a week ago. Since then, Sheamus has won the WWE title from John Cena at TLC. And I can hear the fanboys already. And WWE put the belt on a young guy, so all you haters need to shut the fuck up now because you got what you wanted. Well, did we? Did we really? Look, plenty of people, including myself, have been yelling at WWE to push some of the young guys into the main events, but I don't think I'm alone in saying that we wanted it to be the young guys that we actually cared about. Sheamus? Really? I'm sorry, but I look at Sheamus and I see a generic big man with nothing that really differentiates him from any of the other generic big men out there. I mean, on QCW Radio, I called Sheamus this year's Vladimir Kozlov, and that's all he is to me right now. I mean, there are much more promising young guys on the roster that they could have given the spot to. Of course, none of those guys are Triple H's workout buddy. But nevertheless, WWE has finally decided to take a chance on someone new. I'll give them props for at least doing that much. But as I said in my comments, let's just wait and see where this push goes before we give them too much credit, alright? Because who was the main event of TLC? It wasn't Cena and Sheamus, it was DX and Jericho. On the first Raw show of Sheamus' title reign, how much screen time did he really get? About 2 or 3 minutes, right? Of course, Cena, Orton, and DX were all in multiple segments as usual. So you can see the signs already. I mean, they're willing to give a new guy the world title, but so far it doesn't look like they're willing to book him like a world champion. And believe me, I'm not throwing stones here, because TNA has the same problem with AJ Styles right now. But at this point, I'm thinking Sheamus' title reign looks like it's going to go the way of CM Punk's first title reign. And if that's the case, then this whole thing will have been a big waste of time. But we'll see where it goes. Anyway, about Impact. Impact this week was not a great show by any means, but it was better than the 2-hour abortion we got last week. At least this week we had some build-up for Final Resolution. Not a lot, because they're just way more focused on the January 4th show. And they did hype the hell out of that show, which is good, but they kind of sacrificed Final Resolution at the same time. And that's kind of a shame, because the card doesn't look half bad. And if they'd actually put some effort into hyping this thing the right way, then I think they could have gotten a decent number of buys, but they didn't, and they probably won't. Now, there was some good stuff on the show that I enjoyed. I really loved seeing Roxy back, even if it was only for one show. But I heard they might be bringing her back full time, which would make me very happy, so I'm crossing my fingers there. We had a really good quality match between Desmond Wolfe and Christopher Daniels that they actually gave some time to. I mean, it went 10 minutes with no commercial breaks, which was very refreshing. And the two of them standing tall over AJ and Kurt Angle at the end of the show was great too, but by then it was too little too late to really make AJ versus Daniels seem important. And you could say that about a lot of this pay-per-view. And that's really too bad, because TNA could have had something good here with this card, but it just doesn't feel as important as it should because they've been so focused on other stuff. You know, Mick Foley's paranoid about Hogan, Jeff Jarrett's back, whoop-de-doo. Oh no, look, he's picking up right where he left off, eating up enough screen time for 5 guys. Awesome. Really not happy about Jarrett being back. I'm sorry, but that guy needs to stay off TV. I think I've said this before, but the show is better when Jarrett is not there. Because when he is on the show, he gets an enormous amount of screen time, and all that is time that should be devoted to the young guys at this point. But we've all been over that. Anyway, as far as the bad stuff on the show, aside from the stuff that I usually bitch about every week, TNA still have this idiotic habit of not hyping, and in some cases not even announcing their main events beforehand. I mean, they had this big multi-man tag match as the main event, and I don't think they even mentioned this match until right before it started. And I have no idea why they continue to write the show this way, but stuff like this is one of the main reasons why the ratings tend to drop off in the second hour. I guess Russo thinks that by not telling people what's coming up, it creates an anything can happen feel or something, but the other side of that is that if you don't tell people what's coming up later on in the show, then they have nothing to hook them in and keep them watching, because they think that if the company doesn't tell them what's coming up later, then what's coming up later must not be that important. And you know what else that does not hook people in? Multiple video packages, pre-tapes, and backstage segments all in a row. This is something else TNA has a bad habit of doing. I mean, they started the show off with a video of Foley attacking Nash before the show started. Then they had a video recap of the Foley Jarrett stuff from last week, a Jeff Jarrett video package hyping his return, a backstage interview, and then they went to a commercial break. You can't do this. You can't leave all this shit in one block. You gotta space it out. You gotta space it out over multiple segments and then mix some wrestling in there. Otherwise, people are just gonna get bored really quickly. Because when you have a 50-minute stretch of time with only one wrestling match, there's something wrong with that. It shouldn't be that way. But anyway, Final Resolution is this Sunday. As I said last week, I'm not going to order this pay-per-view. I don't feel like TNA deserves my money for this show because the build-up for the last month has been so piss-poor. And it could very well turn out to be a good show. But I just don't care about it as much as I should. And I kind of feel bad for saying that because I certainly don't hate the card. It's a good card, especially the double main event. But TNA had the chance to make a big deal out of this, and they chose not to. And if they don't even care that much about their own show, then why should we get invested in it? Hell, I'm more interested in Final Battle than Final Resolution right now. But I'll stream Final Resolution, I'll still review it, and I think it'll be a good show. They've got some good stuff here, I just don't think it's going to get a lot of buys because they didn't make any effort to really sell this thing. And now that's done with the time I have left, it's time for movie reviews. Avatar. James Cameron's first movie since Titanic. Now, we've all seen the trailers. I think most people know what the basic story is. A Marine gets shipped off to another planet. He has his mind transferred into an alien body. He gets sent to infiltrate the indigenous people and learn about them, and wackiness ensues. Now, naturally, there's tons and tons of hype surrounding this thing. Does it live up to the hype? That depends what you're expecting. Now, James Cameron actually invented a lot of the technologies they used to make this movie, so when I say that Avatar looks like nothing you've ever seen before, I really mean it. It literally is nothing you've ever seen before. The motion capture work alone is gorgeous, but when you add in the CG and all the rigs for the animals and everything that he used to create this whole alien world, I don't have the words to describe what I saw. It's so rich and so detailed that most of the time you can't tell what's real and what isn't. It's that good. The visuals here are absolutely stunning, and you might as well just give them a special effects Oscar right now because no one else is even going to come close to this. Unfortunately, once you get past the visuals, everything else is not as good. In fact, I'd say this is probably the weakest movie Cameron's done in terms of story and characters. It's not bad, but it's not as original as you probably think it is. Don't be surprised if you can pretty much guess where it's all heading half an hour into the story. Cameron borrows very heavily from a lot of other movies, Dances with Wolves for one. The whole story is basically Dances with Wolves except with aliens. He even borrows from his own movies too. I was watching this thing, I kept saying to myself, okay, there's the Paul Reiser character from Aliens, and there's the Michael Biehn character from The Abyss. It's just Giovanni Ribisi and Stephen Lang playing them this time. I'm not crapping on the actors. They did fine. Sam Worthington let his Aussie accent slip through once or twice, but I didn't really have any complaints about the acting. My complaint is that most of the actors just didn't have a lot to work with. A lot of the characters aren't really that fleshed out, and the bad guys in particular are pretty one-dimensional. Cameron did do a really good job with the aliens, though. He explored the whole Na'vi culture, and their customs, and their language, their belief system, and he put a lot of effort into creating their whole society, so the aliens were great. I just wish he'd put the same attention into the human characters. And the story, too. I have a feeling that there were probably a bunch of scenes left on the cutting room floor, because there were a lot of little details which seemed important to me that got left out. The explanation for why the humans are on the planet in the first place is kind of glossed over and flimsy, and the whole reason for why the Avatar program even exists is never really explained very well. It doesn't really hurt the movie that much, but it was definitely something I kept coming back to and thinking, man, I wish they'd explain that better. So, in the end, it seemed like James Cameron was a little more concerned with the aliens and the effects and the set pieces than he was with the story and the characters. Like I said, there's nothing incredibly original in that sense, but you cannot take your eyes off the screen. The visuals alone are worth seeing this movie. The action scenes are jaw-dropping, the score is beautiful, the pacing is great. I think it's close to 3 hours, but it flies by. So, I'd say Avatar is definitely worth seeing. It might not be the best thing James Cameron's ever done, but it's still a James Cameron movie, meaning that it's better than like 95% of the other stuff that's out there right now. The technical achievements are just unbelievable. So, even if you're not necessarily drawn in by the characters or the story, you can just sit back and watch the eye candy for 3 hours and get your money's worth that way.